I understand why they asked that question. They wanted to catch Blake Lively in lying, and she did.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi, and welcome to Blossom Talk. I'm Tashy Flo, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. As per usual, there's so much to talk about, you guys. This is going to be a packed episode with so much juice, so please stay tuned to the end here. First, I wanted to comment on something that I missed yesterday. So, when I was going through the deposition that was just unsealed from Blake Lively's deposition last month, I was reading some of the dialogue between her and the attorney. And there was a little part of it that I didn't read up because I didn't find it relevant, I guess. But now someone pointed me to this reel on Instagram from Baldoni's Truth Matters, where they actually read this part of her deposition, where the attorney asked her, "You agreed to play the role of Lily in It Ends With Us at the end of 2022. Is that correct?" And Blake Lively says yes. And then the attorneys ask her, prior to that time, had you heard of the book with the same title? Blake Lively's asking, prior to agreeing? The attorney says, yes. Blake Lively says, yes. She had heard about this book prior to agreeing. Then Baldoni Truth Matters on Instagram Reel showed this clip of Blake Lively from an interview.
I actually didn't know the book, which I feel like I live under a rock for not knowing that. I mean, her batting average for like books that make the bestsellers list is wild. Like I've never seen it's like must be rigged.
With this in mind, I understand why they asked that question. They wanted to catch Blake Lively in lying. And she did, because she obviously said in this interview that she hadn't even heard about the book and that she must be living under a rock because Colleen Hoover's books are so famous and she didn't know about it. So by her lying about a tiny little thing like this, make her look terrible in front of a jury if it ever comes to that. Because if she can lie about something like that, what else can she lie about? And I think that's the narrative they're going for here. And that's why they asked that specific question. I'm sure they asked her questions that they know that she's going to contradict herself, because there's so many interviews out there where she said one thing to one person and said something else to someone else, and she's been caught lying so much. And now they have that in her deposition, which is really golden for Justin Baldoni's team. Anyways, I can't believe I missed that. Also, I was reading up this yesterday and I was quoting Ezra Hudson, objection, 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 all the time. And quite a few of you guys commented in my comment section saying that this is very normal procedure in a deposition. Although she's objecting, the witness is obliged to respond anyway. So someone commented this and said, "Hi Sash, do you love your channel? Blah, blah. Actually, even if Blake's attorney objects, Blake is pretty much obliged to answer every question, with a few privileged exceptions like attorney-client or spousal. The objection is so that Blake's attorneys can later challenge the admissibility of the question and answer later on in court. P.S. No judge is going to uphold Lively's attorney's objections whether she knows of any article, etc., authored by Jed Wallace disparaging Lively, since she has accused him of being part of a retaliatory smear campaign." Thank you for clearing that up. A lot of other people, thank you so much, commented on the same thing. I don't know all these legal procedures, so I'm really grateful when you clarify things. So that's why Ezra Hudson was going objection, objection to every single question. Anyways, I went down the rabbit hole yesterday. I don't know why I ended there, but it was something that I was looking at, and then I started noticing this really interesting thing, because I spoke about something similar the other day. I did feature this interview on my channel where this CIA spy, this former CIA spy, was analyzing Blake Lively's body language when she was with Justin Baldoni. And he also analyzed it while she was in an interview situation and she was sitting next to Brandon Sklenar. And he was pointing out specifically how Brandon Sklenar was sitting covering his crotch.
And the man to the right is actually showing all the vulnerable crotch display that we were talking about in previous conversations. He's got multiple things covering his crotch. He's trying very much not to be the dominant man on the sofa. The dominant centerpiece is Blake.
And I don't know why I had that in mind. And then I started looking at some videos and I realized Brandon Sklenar is covering his crotch every time he's in an interview with Blake Lively. Look at these different screenshots from interviews, whatever he has available, if it is a coffee cup, if it is a mug, if it is one of those like other big things that you put coffee in, I don't remember the name, or a bottle, or if he doesn't have anything available, he'll just use his hand to cover his crotch. Isn't that fascinating? I did a little more digging of what this posture actually means when you are sitting like that. And keeping in mind that Blake Lively had accused one of his co-stars and the director of the movie of SH, I feel like Brandon Sklenar was trying to like double protect himself against Blake Lively. According to a site that I found about body language, it says that covering the groin area, often by placing hands there, is a classic protective gesture, typically signalizing insecurity, discomfort, or vulnerability. It's interesting when you think about how Blake Lively has painted herself as a victim, and you see in every interview, she looks so comfortable. Her body posture, she's laying in the sofa in some interviews. She's just like, doesn't have a worry in the world. And she's so comfortable with herself. And then in every single one, Brandon Sklenar is sitting, hiding his crotch. The interesting thing is, I was looking at other interviews that he did to see if he did the same thing when he was interviewed with Sydney Sweeney or Megan Fani, both of them that he just did movies with. And he was not. It's clear to me that he doesn't like being interviewed because he's always like protecting himself by holding his hands in front of his chest, things like that, which is a sign also that you are in a little protective mode. He's doing that sometimes, but he's never covering his crotch. I don't know if you guys know more about body language and analysis. I would love to hear, but I found this extremely telling on how he feels about being in the same room as Blake Lively. And a quick thank you to Matteo for sending me this tip about Ronan Farrow, who was just interviewed by Monica Lewinsky. As many of you probably know, Ronan Farrow was the one who did the huge expose about Harvey Weinstein for the New Yorker during the Me Too thing, and he was a part of kickstarting the whole Me Too movement. And he was interviewed on Monica Lewinsky, and he started talking about this conspiracy that someone made up about him. I remember this. He's not saying who it is, but she is a huge influencer, and she was covering the Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively legal battle very closely for a while, at least. And he's mentioning how this whole scenario was created around him because he met up with Taylor Swift.
She started by getting up and saying, Ronan Farrow is the most powerful journalist at the New York Times. I don't write for the New York Times.
Right.
I have no connection to the paper. But her premise was basically that I had been photographed with my boyfriend coming out of drinks with Taylor Swift. Mm-hmm. And that Taylor Swift was friends with Blake Lively, the actress.
Yes.
And that Blake Lively was engaged in this lawsuit with this guy, Justin Baldoni. Mm-hmm. And then the New York Times, after I had drinks with Taylor Swift, did a story, which I had no knowledge of, no contact with, didn't encourage in any way. And her premise was, because of that chain of disparate facts, that I had orchestrated with Taylor Swift the destruction of this guy.
Yeah, he's not even working for the New York Times, which he points out, which is a competitor to the New Yorker. So why would he feed that to the New York Times? And also, as we know, Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are not speaking. And I think at that point when this was supposed to happen, I don't think that Taylor Swift would support helping Blake Lively to post or to publish that story in the New York Times. I think that is extremely unlikely, let's put it that way, since everything that happened in this case. But my point here is that Ronan experienced a lot of criticism from that because this person has a big following and they all attacked him, and it was a horrible experience for him.
I have never done any reporting on this guy. I have nothing to do with this. And for a while, as I was getting essentially doxxed by this woman, you know, she sent out her followers and every possible channel of public communication was, you know, you're just dirt. You're worthless. You destroyed this man. Again, complete fiction. Nothing, not even adjacent to reality. And like gleefully be like, you know, this influencer is taking you down, without even Googling what paper I write for.
And the way he was explaining how everything happened reminded me of that it's exactly the same thing that happened to me with the New York Times. You know, they saw Melissa Nathan is connected to Johnny Depp. Melissa Nathan is connected to Justin Baldoni. She worked for both of them. And I posted a video with Johnny Depp, an interview I did with him, which I hashtagged Justice for Johnny. And then I published an interview with Blake Lively that made her like put her in a bad light because she was basically a bully in that interview. And then they were like, oh, she's connected to both these things. She must be working with Melissa Nathan, which is what New York Times printed. And after that, I received a lot of backlash, a lot of hate from people. And it's exactly what happened to him. Yeah, I thought this was interesting because I could really empathize with him, what he was going through. And I do not think that he had anything to do with Blake Lively going to the New York Times with this article. And of course, just because he's friends with Taylor Swift doesn't mean anything. So remember, critical thinking, as I talk a lot about here on my channel, is so important. And always question things twice and don't attack people online, no matter what. Anyways, just wanted to put that out there. Talking about Taylor Swift, the Daily Mail just published a story about Taylor Swift's engagements and how Blake Lively is reacting to it. They're saying that Taylor Swift and Blake Lively war hits new low. Blake knows she isn't invited to the wedding, but insists she doesn't care and is serving up ice cold revenge. Okay, they've spoken to an insider here, you guys. I don't know if it's Leslie Sloan this time or if someone else, but the person is saying that Blake Lively, now 38 years old, finally accepted that her relationship is over, at least for a while, it says. Then they write that back in June, a source told the Daily Mail that Swift had been ghosting Lively's repeat attempts to reach out with texts, voicemail, and even emails, begging to mend what they once had. Text, voicemails, and even emails, you guys. Now Lively has given up trying. It almost sounds like Blake Lively has been doing the same to Taylor Swift as they accused Brian Friedman of doing to Isabella Ferrer when he tried to subpoena her. She tried every single way, text, voicemail, and even emails. Anyways, the source here is saying that Blake didn't reach out following the engagement announcement and isn't going to. An insider source told the Daily Mail, this isn't the time. When is the time to congratulate someone on their engagement if it isn't when they got engaged? I don't know whenever this timing would be right for Blake. And the person here continues to say, what would be the point of reaching out now? It really makes no sense. Lively has bigger fish to fry. It does make sense to congratulate someone when something big happens in their life if you care about the person. So that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, because Blake Lively has more important things to do. She needs to continue to ruin Justin Baldoni and all his associates' lives and careers. So she's pretty busy doing that. So she doesn't have even time to congratulate Taylor Swift on her engagement. And apparently here it says brutally, the actress apparently now doesn't talk about Taylor at all and doesn't find it helpful to think about what would have been. This is something that we would have talked about in the past, like what was going to happen, if she was going to be in the wedding and what that would look like and all of that. But now it's just silence, the source says. There is no will she or won't she about Blake being in the wedding because she just won't. She knows that. And I don't think she particularly wants to talk about it. I don't think so either. And I'm sure Blake Lively had envisioned herself to be the bridesmaid or the maid of honor, sorry, for Taylor Swift, and that all her children would be like flower girls and flower boys, and she would get almost as much attention as Taylor Swift would get during the wedding. But yeah, it's not going to happen. But the source continues to say that that wasn't a concern for Lively, who certainly isn't sitting at home obsessing about Taylor getting engaged, because she got her own life to focus on. I think that Blake Lively is definitely sitting at home because she hasn't been a lot out lately, and she's definitely thinking about Taylor Swift getting married, because she doesn't think about so many other things these days except telling her lawyers to make other people's lives more miserable. So I'm sure at this point, Blake Lively really wished that she was Taylor Swift's friend. As you know, this news broke just the day after Blake Lively was turning 38 on August 25th. And who knows, maybe Taylor Swift was engaged days or weeks before she actually announced it. But anyways, Blake Lively was busy, as I said yesterday, reposting all these stories from people, her colleagues or acquaintances, people that make money on her, that were congratulating her on her birthday. Not even Hugh Jackman congratulated her on her birthday, or Salma Hayek, or any of her other close friends, or even her husband Ryan Reynolds congratulated Blake Lively on her birthday. Yeah, and I even saw some people were speculating if Ryan Reynolds had deleted posts he had of his wife on his Instagram. I don't know if that's true, but according to Donna, a Daily Dose of Donna, one of my colleagues here on YouTube, she reported on this because someone tipped her off that Ryan Reynolds had cleaned out all pictures of Blake from his Instagram, and she was looking back to see if it actually was true. And she was doing some deep diving into his Instagram account, and she couldn't find any photos with the two of them, or even any pictures of Blake, except like some random half shots of her in a Wrexham football game or whatever, since the last year. So I don't know what's going on there. All right, we have some more filings here. This time, you guys, this is so stupid. Okay, so as you know, Blake Lively is desperate to make Jed Wallace the big villain here. She's been trying to dragging him into the lawsuit. It was dismissed. She dragged him in again, and it's been all this back and forth with legal filings. And now her lawyers submitted this evidence into the docket, and I was like, what the F is this all about? This is so stupid. So the first exhibit here to prove that there was a smear campaign and that Jed Wallace was a part of this smear campaign. So this exhibit A is a group chat between Katie Case, Matthew Mitchell, Melissa Nathan, and Jennifer Abel. All of them have been involved in the PR campaign to save Justin Baldoni's reputation. So Blake Lively's team, they're using these exhibits, like these text messages in between these people who are basically talking about the weather. So it's going back and forth because they're flying somewhere and they're like, oh, it's bad weather. Let's meet at the hotel. Or maybe we can do that phone call in person. And then they decide to do a phone call on Zoom instead because the weather's so bad. And then there's delayed at the airport. So one person misses her flight. I was like looking for like, okay, where's the big bombshell here? And that's it. And they're like, look at this. They're talking to each other as a group. They are definitely planning to scheme something up to smear Blake Lively. Like, what? I have no words. And then you have Exhibit B, which, if you're trying a little, you could make this sound like Blake Lively is actually doing this to smear Justin Baldoni. Because in this exhibit, there are text messages between Justin Baldoni and Melissa Nathan. And Justin is making Melissa aware that someone has impersonated her on TikTok and commenting as Melissa Nathan on his profile or on his TikTok. And they're like, oh, wow, we have to flag this. So they're basically talking about how some of these stories, you know, when people pretend that they're celebrities or whatever, and then they start asking people for money and then they scam them. of course, they steal the money and it's never the celebrity that's behind that. So they're saying that this, these things can happen and we need to stop it from happening. We don't want to get impersonated on TikTok. And then Melissa is saying at the end here, it's wild. Another client had this happen and the person that fell for it lost $35,000. Jennifer Abel is saying a lot of talent deal with this, and it's wild that people actually fall for it when they ask for money, etc. So that's the exhibit B, that they are having this conversation between them on how someone is trying to impersonate them, probably to harm them. And Blake Lively puts in her exhibit. I mean, how does this prove anything? I'm just like, what is the logic here? Again, this is so ridiculous. And the fact here is that Jed Wallace, who this is to prove that he was a part of this, he's not in any of these chats. So like, what are they trying to prove here? Like, he wasn't in here. So how does this have anything to do with it? They don't even talk about him here. I mean, so the filing in general, there's a longer filing here that I don't want to get into, is repeatedly accusing Jed Wallace of helping spread negative narratives about Blake and Ryan. But the proof is circumstantial at best. Contracts, proposal, and co-conspirators praising him for a successful shift. So that's what they're doing. They're saying, great, the narrative has shifted. Of course, Justin Baldoni wanted the narrative to shift from him being a creep to him actually being a good guy. And then there is no hard evidence. They don't have any evidence, as you know, that Jed Wallace planted or posted any negative content about Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds. This is so desperate. It's getting to a point now where these lawyers must be pulling their hair out every single day. Also, a reminder, today is the day that Perez Hilton is going to the hearing in Nevada, meeting face-to-face Blake Lively's lawyers, protecting and defending freedom of speech. We should all support him in doing that. So if you are in Vegas, go support him everywhere. This is a fight for all of us. And this is important. This is about the First Amendment. And this is about democracy. Anyways, to end this at a cute note, I received a photo from Felicia Cooper. If you watch my podcast, you know, I interviewed Felicia Cooper a while back. People loved her. She's so adorable. She's such a talented actress as well. And then when I published that interview, her movie mother commented, Kari Wuru, who actually played her mom, said, oh, I play Felicia Cooper's mom. I have so many good stories. So last Friday, I published my interview with Kari Wuru. And then voila, these two amazing women met on a set again by accident this week. And Felicia Cooper sent me this really cute picture of the two of them. So anyways, if you haven't watched those podcasts, you should check them out. Both of these women are just so badass, so honest, and such a rare gem to find in Hollywood. Anyways, that's it from you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And if you want to hype this video, that would be amazing. I think it's a new feature now on YouTube that you can hype people's videos and that would help them in the algorithms. So that's super cool. And yeah, please keep sending me tips. I couldn't do this without you guys. You know it. And I'll see you in my next one.
Yeah,
Bye.
we fall some talk.